What's up, everybody? Welcome to Boot Wizard today. And it is a very special day indeed, because I have pulled in somebody to basically do a little interview, a little Q&A. And this is from a company that I was super excited to find a few months ago because of what they do and what it means that I can get. Now, I'm being very cryptic here. And the reason for that is because I want the person to tell you themselves. I want them to introduce themselves and tell you how excited they are about what they do, because they're very passionate about what it is they do. So I'm just going to hand over. Helen, how are you today?
Hey, my name's Helen. I am the founder of Foudys. For any keen women's football fans out there, you may get the little nod and a wink to legend Julie Foudy, who was part of the US Women's National Team 1999 team. I'm not going to lie to you. The name came about because it was a word that was available on Google to buy as a domain, but it also has amazing and incredible connotations to one of the most iconic football teams in world football, which is the US Women's National Team. So we launched back in 2020. We are Foudys is our tagline on social media. So you can find us on Instagram or Facebook or TikTok or Twitter. And we are the first and still the only website dedicated to women's football retail, so football jerseys. And you can see a couple of the ones that are going out this week, a complete array of different jerseys that we have. And yeah, we basically source and spend tons of time trying to find the latest and the greatest women's football pieces. And trust me when I say sourcing is basically like being an investigator or a world-class detective, because most of the women's football memorabilia pieces are incredibly rare, incredibly hard to come across, but also therefore it makes it really exciting when you manage to source a 1999 US Women's National Team jersey. It's pretty cool. That's what I do.
You've answered one of my questions there already, because I had an inkling that might be where the name came from, but honestly, I didn't know if it was just your last name and that's why you'd gone with Foudys. Although I do love that it is Foudys and it's because the domain name was available. Just pure honesty. That's what you're getting. That is fantastic.
I'm not going to lie to you all.
And Helen obviously there mentions that you can get all kinds of women's retail jerseys from there. That doesn't mean that they're only available as women's fit jerseys or anything like that. You will note this lovely Utah jersey that I'm wearing right here. This was purchased from Foudys not so long ago. It even has the print on the back. I don't know if you can see that. My little Kelly O'Hara print on the back there. So stuff from all over the world, which has kind of really blown me away. You mentioned about sourcing. Some of the stuff that you've come up is, there's a few things on your website that I was praying when I clicked onto them that they'd actually be available in men's fit. They're not. I really want the 3-star US Women's National Team jersey that you have on the website right now, but you only have it in women's fit.
So can I quickly interject on that?
Go on.
Is that all right? So it's really interesting because I'm actually going to write about it soon. There's this really common misconception by brands such as Nike and Adidas that only women are interested in women's football. So that only women want to buy women's replica shirts. And so obviously it's not me. I prefer men's fit clothes anyway. All my life I've worn the men's fit football jerseys. Obviously they only introduced in around 2018, the women's fit jerseys. And I prefer the men's fit for my body, which is fine. And there just is this weird common misconception that only women want to buy it. So we'll do a ton of women's fit and we'll do no men's fit. Now, I have found that to be actually the opposite of the case in terms of like our sales. Unless people are buying them for their partners, the majority, maybe like 60% of the sales are men's fit and sold to men's names. Obviously, I can only tell you that the names are James or Adam,
of course, yeah.
But I feel like this is a really interesting, because obviously I'm the only one doing this in the world. It's a really interesting anecdotal thing that it's not right. Something needs to change, and the companies need to realize that you're creating stuff which actually women don't particularly want, a lot of women, but also men want women's football jerseys. Like men want to support Kelly O'Hara, you know, men want to buy men's fit jerseys. I just can't source them. And obviously I'm not able to make them myself unless I do unofficial. So it's
why not get into a factory, start making things?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a friend, another blogger is Ollie over the OC Boot blog. He's a huge Man City women's fan. He has his jersey with Becky on the back of it, and honestly, he goes to every single home game. He's a season ticket holder, and he would be like the person I know who really is like the most into like women's football, and most of the people I know who follow women's football are men. Like you get obviously a lot of women as well, but the majority that I know that I speak to are men, and who love basically what you do. I've been basically, since I found your website, sharing out it to people to be like, hey, look what you've got. You're doing an offer the other day on the Man City print with the Man City jersey, right? I'm a Man United fan, so it's definitely not for me. But I sent that to a few people I know, and you know, it's a very exciting thing to be able to get, because it is so sparse. Because as you say, so to your knowledge, you are the only place doing this in Europe, and you're one of the only places that even buys this print. Is that right?
So I know for a fact that I'm the only person outside of the clubs that buy the WSL font for resale, and that's come directly from the official manufacturer, the only manufacturer. So the person that owns the font for the WSL also owns the Premier League font. So they sell tons of the Premier League font. And when I came in, they had to like root through the archives to find the WSL font. And I was like, I think it's you guys that own the font. Can I get a contract with you? And they were like, we don't own that. I was like, I'm pretty sure you do. And they were like, right, okay. And a funny little anecdotal thing is when I said I want to do the championship, so the WSL 2, I want to offer the championship. And they've got it now on their website, like just for me, basically the only person that purchases it. It says Women's Champion League. And I'm like, I don't think they realise that this is the league below, because it's even on the website, they put it above the WSL. So yeah, so I am the only person in the world that purchases the official WSL lettering other than the clubs themselves. So yes, essentially, I can guarantee in a WSL sense that I'm the only person that does the official font. In terms of the other things, the other bits and bobs, it's purely from my extensive knowledge of football jerseys. I'm a football jersey collector, so I've just gone off the fact that I've never been able to source certain products and certain jerseys and certain things, and obviously I spend most of my time as like the sort of lead person that's sourcing and that's finding things for women and for women's fans. That for most things we are the first ones doing it, and I'd love to like do a little breaking news piece if you want it.
Obviously.
Yeah. So I have for ages wanted a Lika Martins Barcelona jersey, for myself personally. I collect Barcelona jerseys, I always have. So I'd love to have that little touch on the women's league. And this week, in fact, about 2 days ago, I finally signed with Barcelona to have the rights to their lettering. Yeah. So nowhere, isn't that pretty cool? Nowhere else that I can find in the world does anything other than name sets. So obviously you can get Messi, you can get Griezmann, you can get all of those name sets. So I was going to them and saying, can I get a name set for Martins? Can I get a name set for oh God, my brain's not working. Thank God I've got coffee just arrived right on cue.
Look at that. Coffee is here and ready to go.
Yeah, just because I couldn't remember the name of any other Barcelona player because I'm so obsessed with Lika Martins. But
she's incredible though. Like she's absolutely incredible. I used to live in the Netherlands,
the best.
And like having like Martins on a jersey would have been so cool. I've always wanted her Dutch national team jersey actually.
Isn't that wild though, that like she's such a huge name in Netherlands? She was considered before the Ballon d'Or was given to women. Obviously, Ada Hegerberg was the first to get it, but the year before, she got all the prizes. Essentially, she would have been the Ballon d'Or winner in 2017. She was the best player, or seen as, millions of followers. You can't buy a Barcelona jersey with their name on the back. What?
It's nuts, right?
They're in the Champions League final in 2 weeks. So I thought really quickly, it's only been about a month that I've been working on this project, but in getting the Barcelona lettering, I also managed to, because it's all done by the same person. I just thought, I know, when in Rome. So I got Barcelona, Bayern Munich, PSG, and Real Madrid. So
that's amazing.
Really, really excited. And I'll only be offering the women's lettering. So you will be able to get Messi or be able to get Neymar or Mbappe from me. I'm only going to be doing the women's names.
Fantastic. You see, I wish I'd have found you earlier, because I have this season's Man United third shirt, the black one. I have that with Heath on the back of it, 77, but it's got the Premier League lettering on it because I couldn't find the women's lettering. Little did I know you were just around the corner. And I also have this season's pink Real Madrid jersey. And I have Aslani on that one. I always pronounce her name incorrectly, but I have that on that one. And again, that's in the Real Madrid print, not the women's print. So I should have needed to find you 6 months ago. But it's okay. I know you're here now.
I think a few people are saying that. So it's all good. It's all good.
And we are telling the world. So we've kind of covered what you do for sure, and also what you offer, which is, it's basically women's football retail. So there's a whole variety of things, mainly obviously the shirts. But why did you get started? Why did you decide that this was something that you really wanted to do?
So it's kind of twofold, really. On a personal level, I already mentioned I collect football shirts. I always have. It's been my weird little. Everyone's got their weird little thing, right? That they do train sets or whatever, and there goes the room full of football boots. Okay, and my weird little thing growing up was I was a football shirt collector. I'll give you a small glimpse. If I just slide this window, you'll see this is just some of my shirts. But it goes on. It's on this side as well. I'm not going to show you the other side, but it goes. It's both sides. And then in Newcastle at my mum and dad's house, there's another wardrobe. So I think I've probably got around 150, 200 football shirts. Always collected them. And I really, in 2015, grew a really strong affiliation to the Lionesses after the World Cup and during the World Cup, and really followed them in Canada. And then I flew out to the Netherlands to watch us in the semi-final, unfortunately get knocked out by the Netherlands. Yeah. And we went to the final in Europe. And I was sat there in the stadium looking around, and there are 30,000 screaming Netherlands fans. The passion, it was the same as at St. James's Park when I'd go and watch my men's team and I'd go and watch Newcastle United. I was like, this is big. People love this. And yet you'd walk out the stadium and you'd see, I don't know what names you'd see on the back, but you'd see the Netherlands men's players, Van Persie, etc. And they'd just gone to watch Lieke Martens tear up the final of the Euros, and people weren't representing those players. And I think that's when it kind of not came to me, but it kind of was a bit of a nugget of, that's not great, is it? Little girls should be seeing the names of the women on the backs. So I parked it, and then a few years later, 2019, I was desperately trying to get a Portland Thorns home jersey with Tobin Heath on the back. Tobin Heath is a theme of this. I'm a big Portland Thorns fan, and the NWSL is, in my opinion, one of the best women's leagues in the world. So I really wanted to get those jerseys. Also, if you are a shirt collector out there, these are rare. This is you can get your hands on a Real Madrid jersey, you can get your hands on, a Brazilian league jersey like Boca Juniors, or, a South American jersey or whatever. You can't, good luck, my friend, getting hold of a women's NWSL jersey unless you want to remortgage your house. And you literally, this is the level of rare that these jerseys are. So as a football jersey collector, I'm I want this so bad. Get me one of these jerseys. And I just couldn't get one for love nor money. And then I noticed Nike were doing the away jerseys. So I got hold of a Portland Thorns away jersey, which I cherish and I think is absolutely stunning. But then a friend of mine was at the Man City game and she'd gone to the store and I'd gone with her. She wanted to get Lucy Bronze or somebody jersey, let's say Lucy Bronze for the sake of this conversation. And she got to the counter and they asked her to spell it. And I'm like, it's the best player in the world. Or one of the best players in the world. And then they put it in the Premier League lettering, and then she was like, no, sorry, I want the Man City lettering. And I said, the Man City lettering, but Lucy wears the women's lettering. And then it kind of came to me. I was like,
couldn't get it.
It's like a lack of offering. There's a few facets. There's a lack of offering. There's a lack of equality, and there's a lack of knowledge that these are products that want to be made. And I think like my wife was saying the other day, you should put on your gravestone, I knew we could do it. And one of my things, I was like, you know what? I kind of just want to prove. I want the clubs to start producing this. So what I'll do is I'll prove that they're economically viable. I'll prove that women are commercially successful and that I can make a business out of this. And so there was a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek, fine, I'll do it. If you're not going to do it, I will provide this service. But then it's become so much more than that, really, because actually it's about equal space, and it's about the idea that, you know, a little girl can go and watch Brazil in a Marta jersey and walk down the street in a Marta jersey and like really represent the women's team, not represent Neymar Jr., but going to a women's game, you know? So that's what sparked it. And here we are now, 5 months in, and it's been incredible.
I couldn't agree more. Like everything you said is absolutely spot on. And it's like you want to be able to see, like if I don't have kids, but if I was to have kids, I want to be able to take them to, you know, WSL games and things like that. And I want them to be able to look and see and maybe see, you know, we'll use Lucy Bronze as the example, who is, if anybody who's followed my Instagram or anything for a while knows that I love Lucy Bronze. Lucy Bronze is just incredible. She's such a player. Like I was at the last Women's World Cup. I saw England play Japan, and just for me, like it was a big deal to be able to watch Lucy Bronze, to be able to go and see her perform. And you take that and you apply it to like kids, and and then they want to like the shirts of their heroes. It's just something that should be available, and it's great to have the space, your space, to actually be able to do that, because players mean a lot to people, and they should be able to have that on their jersey to inspire them. Really, that's just
and as an example, James, like you wearing that jersey out in public. I know that I've worn that jersey because I've got Christian Press on the back, though not O'Hara. But I've obviously got that jersey because that's one of the main joys of running a women's football jersey company. You get to keep some of them. So I go out in it, and people say to me, "What is that?"
Yeah.
And I say, "Oh, this is Utah Royals. They were a football club. They disbanded and they've moved over to Kansas. And Christian Press plays for Manchester United." And I'm like, it's a brand awareness exercise. And if I was a little girl, when I was a little girl, and I was like climbing the hallowed steps at St. James's Park, and seeing Shearer on the back of every single shirt in that stadium, I would have loved to have seen a name that I didn't know and go, "What name is that?" And then someone go, "Oh, that's Sarah Smith. She plays for the Newcastle United women, and she's amazing." And then obviously the font is completely different. For anybody at home thinking I'm just putting the names on, the lettering and the detail within the lettering is way nicer than the Premier League, by the way.
It is. It's so much nicer.
But it's different and it's unique. So I can't wait for the idea that going to the stadium at Manchester, there's going to be like 50, 60 people in Man City shirts with the name on the back, and people might ask that question, or they might say, "Where did you get that?" Or what is that name? Who is Becky? No, do you need Becky? She's a Canadian player. It's like it's a conversation, and it's a piece of history, and it's a question people ask. And I've got so many rare jerseys. People always ask me, "Where do you get that from? What is that?" I just think it's a conversation starter. And I think it's really important for women's football that we have those conversation starters, that people are asking, where is that? And who is that? And what is that?
Absolutely. No, that's it, and it is awareness. A lot of the time is getting eyes on the product. It's an excellent product, and it's something to be enjoyed, and it is football that we all love. And getting more people to be aware just simply by wearing a shirt is so easy. I did a little unboxing video of this on my channel, and the number of comments underneath it where people were just like, "Oh, that jersey's so cool," kind of thing. And it's kind of even cooler, like you say, because they're now disbanded and they're now Kansas, even though the American system's nuts, isn't it? In like 4 years, they retain the option to come back. And so Kansas would be disbanded. And oh my word, my brain's going to explode. I do have to mention as well.
Confusing.
Yeah. Portland Thorns, by the way, best jerseys. Their jerseys are so good. I really want a Sophia Smith jersey, because I have her as like, she's going to be like the next big thing in my head. She's like new Alex Morgan, shall we say, who's kind of come to the end of her career, and Sophia Smith, and their jerseys are just beautiful. I have to say though,
all of them, like Gotham, even though it's more like plain and a bit simple, but Gotham FC, like the NWSL jerseys, it's crazy. I don't want to like disparage an incredible league and an incredible sort of set of players and set of clubs, but it's absolutely baffling to me that they have little to no interest in creating a worldwide market. Like, I know that the women's teams have no connection in terms of their look and feel to the men's teams, the MLS teams, which is great in a lot of ways, but I find it absolutely crazy that they have no like distribution process to the UK via any other channel that makes their shirts accessible, because it's a brand awareness thing. Like I just said a minute ago, it's a brand awareness exercise for the clubs to be able to like reach into high streets and households all over the world by being able to sell them easily all over the world. So they create these beautiful jerseys. Chicago Red Stars again created one where the background had little tiny bits of words that
from
created
last year.
The skyline of, I wanted
that with Sam Kerr on so badly.
It's stunning, and it was like $180 and plus $50 delivery or whatever. And it's kind of twofold. And obviously, I've explored this in depth because it's my obsession. But essentially, the American system, and they base their pricing on things like NFL. And if you look at an NFL jersey, it's got bits of plastic on it and all of these bits and bobs, because they're big football jerseys. They're massive as well, so it's a big piece of fabric. The sleeves are usually quite long and they're very detailed. And so we're talking, imagine going to the Chelsea mega store and buying a Chelsea shirt for 170 quid, not including a name, by the way, just on its own. It just wouldn't, fans would just go wild over it. But the NWSL are basing their pricing structure of their shirts on some weird amount. And then the other thing is that they don't want to have leftovers. So they like to sell out. They don't want to, they'll create a tiny proportion of jerseys and then they'll sell out and then they'll go, oh, well, no more. And you're thinking, you could have made, what are you doing? Wild. Like, it's crazy to me. But that's the NWSL way. And in a way, there'll be people out there obviously watching this thinking, wow, as a shirt collector, they are rare. Like, they are rare pieces. And I'm making it my absolute mission to make them accessible in the UK and Europe and around the world, essentially. And I'm knocking on doors. I promise you, anybody who's like, get these bloody NWSL jerseys on your site, I am smashing down doors and speaking to clubs on a regular basis. And I've spoken to some of the general managers and I'm speaking to some of the new clubs, and it's a work in progress. But the NWSL is a weird, beautifully beautiful shirt with a weird process of making stuff happen.
Oh, absolutely.
Sorry, long-winded.
No, absolutely. And I agree. Like, I can see you've got that Marta jersey behind you there. Like, if you get that in an Orlando Pride jersey, again, Alex Morgan, that like kind of like big purple Orlando Pride jersey. There's so many great stuff there. And when you compare it to the men's MLS jerseys, the men's MLS jerseys are some of the most boring things I've ever seen in my life. So it's nice to have that kind of alternative, even if you're associated with like a city. I know a lot of people like to buy things from maybe city they've visited and things like that. The NWSL jerseys are so much nicer, nicer. But so I'm assuming that the demand is growing basically, and you have people who are really pushing for this. Is there Do you think the demand is something that right now is kind of like sustainable for your business, or does it really need to grow in order for it to be something that we can kind of commit to long term from multiple places?
I mean, it's difficult because so the short answer would be that I left my job in January to do this full time. So that would be the short answer. That is also like in a way wishful thinking, but I'm also like I'm very entrepreneurial in spirit. So it's in my nature to go, right, I see something here, I'm gonna go for it. The way that, or the metaphor or the analogy, I can't think of the right word to use, but the way that I think about it is we have climbed onto a roller coaster and it's just taking off. So we're on that bit there where it goes to go over that cusp. And there's a few things that it kind of, number one, it's becoming enough for me to be able to get support in, to be able to support the growth of the business. But there are certain things that that I would need, or that would help me to sort of cross that line into it being a business per se. So I'm just going to give you a little insight. When somebody orders a jersey from me, like this beautiful Arsenal third jersey, so somebody ordered this and they order a size medium, the tag will be on here somewhere, the size medium men's fit third jersey. They order that and I purchase that. And right. So I purchased it for the price that you have bought it for. This is across all the WSL clubs. So I don't make any money off the sale of the football jersey. So when people say to me, like, can you give me a discount on the football jersey? I'm buying it from the Arsenal mega store. So all my jerseys are official. And I'm doing it on purpose because I could go back street and buy some £30 jersey, but there is no way I would risk the quality of the finished product. So I buy it from the company. Now, obviously, I have the contract with the WSL to do the lettering, and that's where I like work as a business. To take myself to the next level, I'm sure everybody out there who's bought a football shirt knows the sort of investment that I would need, because what I would love to do from next season is have a stock of Chelsea jerseys available at my storage unit, have a stock of Arsenal jerseys based on what I've sold this year. But the kind of positive, or the kind of thing that feels really great about it is, even with no margin and no profit being made from the sale of the football jersey, I'm still being able to leave my job in January. So if I was able to buy a stock and therefore make a margin on the football jersey, then this is a really sustainable business. And then another thing that's really exciting is, there've been articles published about this, but by 2030, they estimate that women's sport, so the entire sort of encompassed of women's sport, will have a value of around £1 billion profit. So that's billion, by the way, with a B, not million. It's probably already worth about a few million. So this is a real area of growth, and women's football is the biggest growing sport. Women's football is the biggest growing sport on the planet. And it's growing at an astronomical rate, because essentially the quality, as a result of supporting and the infrastructure of the women's game, the quality is just improving tenfold. I mean, from when goalkeeping coaches were introduced in 2017 to the 2019 World Cup, it was unbelievable, the difference in quality in those areas of the pitch. So as the quality goes up, the popularity will go up. The coverage, Sky Sports, BT Sports, BBC next season, I just see it going from strength to strength. So I hope that roller coaster analogy now makes sense. I'm on the roller coaster.
Absolutely. No, like it's true. Off. We're definitely kind of moving in that direction for women's sport as a whole, but particularly women's football. And the more exposure it gets, the better. At the moment, like, I love being able to get on the FA Player to watch games and things like that. But I live in Ireland, so sometimes getting the games over in the UK is very hard. So to have those extra avenues, the Sky Sports deal and things like that, and the money that's going to push into like women's football as a whole is going to be massive, right? Like that, it's just investment over time.
You're going out of your way to pick up your iPad or your desktop computer or whatever to watch the FA Player. The dream would be that somebody flicks through, and I know my dad's done this a few times. My dad is a fan of women's football, just to be really clear. He genuinely is. He got me into women's football, and he He knows all the players. Yesterday, he sent me a text about Tony Duggan. What's Tony Duggan doing? And so he's a fan, but he has a few times flipped through the TV channels and landed on a women's football game in the last few years and said to me, I didn't realize I was watching women's football because I'm a bit old. So I'm like, oh, this is a good game. I love football. And he's been watching it, and then he goes, oh, bloody hell, it's women's football. Like, I obviously still going to continue to watch it because I like women's football, but he's like, he's like, I just can't believe the difference in just having coaches and nutritionists and people behind the players that are making the quality just like flourish. And it's beautiful to watch, really. And I'm just part of that, really. I'm just kind of a small cog in the women's football machine of providing something for the fans that are growing astronomically year on year.
Absolutely, and it can only be beneficial for you as you're kind of in at the ground. It's the best place to get into anything, isn't it? Like you're part of like that foundation of the growth, and then hopefully that continues to take off, and hopefully that continues to benefit you, particularly as like somewhat of a first man in, first woman in, and hopefully that you kind of reap the benefits of that in the future. So you've obviously got a variety, mainly WSL jerseys, and then obviously the World Cup ones as well. What's the most simple one? What's the most popular shirt you've got? What's the most popular shirt you sell, and what's the most popular name that gets put on the back?
Easily, they'll love this. Because I know these fans love it. They love it. We're the best fans in the world. Easily, the top seller is the Chelsea home jersey. Easily. And easily the most popular name is Eriksson 16, Magdalena Eriksson, which is not great for me. So if you could pick shorter names, that would be grand. No, yeah. So, no, I'm joking. Of course, I love seeing Magda on the back of a shirt. She's an absolute icon in so many ways. But also another really popular one is Fran Kirby, obviously with her resurgence in the last year and what she's contributed to Chelsea in the last year. It's been an unbelievable season for her, and that's showing. Just an interesting thing that happens is when something major happens in world football, like in women's world football, obviously with me being the only one that's doing what I do, I see that in the sales. Yeah. So Maren Mjelde got injured a little while back, and obviously very sadly, like that's going to rule her out for the rest of the season. But when Maren Mjelde got injured, I just suddenly saw loads of people landing on the website and buying Maren Mjelde shit. It was within an hour. And I remember Ebony Salmon had an incredible period for Bristol City, and I was getting people all over the country, Scotland, like all the way down to the South Coast, buying Bristol City Ebony Salmon. So it really does, like it ebbs and flows, but through the season, the strong contender for sort of the top name sold has definitely been Magda Eriksson. Outside of Chelsea, it's probably Leah Williamson. Yeah. Leah Williamson.
What? Again, love her.
Really, guys. Williamson, 10 letters. Really? Come on.
I almost actually sent you. So I have a Lionesses jersey, the away one, that specific Lionesses one. So I have that, and there's no print on the back of it because I couldn't get it at the time. Surprise, surprise. So I know that obviously, like, I can send you that jersey to put a print on it, right? So I was going to send that across, and obviously my first pick would have been Lucy Bronze, but you don't have any E's right now, is that right?
We don't.
Yeah.
We don't have that.
I noticed that there was no E's. So I was like, oh, you know what? I might send it anyway, and I'll get Williamson. So you hated me as well. Like, there you go. Stick Williamson on the back of that.
Honestly, and I don't get it because, and it's no slight on Leah Williamson, but she didn't play a game in the World Cup, I don't think.
No, I don't think she came on at all.
I obviously adore her. I think she's a fantastic player, and I remember saying a lot, she should be playing, she should be getting minutes, but how hilarious is that? It's by far the biggest England seller is Williamson, and the biggest Arsenal seller is Williamson. And if I just show you, so we have an arching thing like this, and you put the names, you line them up like that. Williamson literally goes, Williamson, and you just about get it in. Like it's a whole arc is used up. But I don't mind really, guys. Keep the Williamson orders coming in. I'm not going to get angry at it.
One other jersey that I did want to bring up, because I've noticed this, like going through the website there, is the Everton jersey. So Everton have a different sponsor for their men's and women's team, right? And to my knowledge at the moment, and that would be backed up by your site, Everton, or you can't make, Hummel don't make a Everton jersey with the women's sponsor on the front. Is that right?
That is correct. We also, I believe, God, Everton fans are going to come at me, but I believe that they didn't actually have a sponsor for a little while. And then they got a sponsor. It begins with P, I think, the sponsor. I can't remember who it is. That sort of stuff is really interesting in women's football, because it is just a total disregard for the fact that the women's team exists. When you consider people like Izzy Christiansen, she's been nominated for Player of the Season this year by the WSL. When you consider that, like, that's a fan-led thing, like doing Player of the Season. Yeah. That's something that's about fandom. It doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. It's about who's your favourite player. Yeah. You can't actually support your favourite player if you're an Everton fan in the most real way, you know. But yeah, I do the kazoo ones, which obviously you can see in the background. There's an Everton kazoo shirt. But yeah, Everton don't produce it. They're not willing to. The one thing that I could do, obviously I wouldn't, is I could remove kazoo, and I could pre-print the thing on. But that would be more of a sort of adaptation of an Everton shirt as opposed to.
Yeah, it's not quite the same thing.
So it's really challenging. It's really difficult because it's like, again, an accessibility things, and my job becomes impossible.
Absolutely.
So challenging.
I only bring up Everton. So before I lived in Ireland, I used to live in Denmark, and Everton have one of my favorite Danish players in Sorensen. So I kind of was interested in that. And then I was looking through and I found that, Everton jerseys. Then I noticed that nowhere prints them, or Everton don't make them with that specific women's sponsor on them, which is, I suppose, disappointing. And it's just proof that, like, there is more required from a variety of places to really put the onus on women's football. It feels to me like, I don't know what you think, but a lot of companies and maybe clubs they're actually now lagging behind the interest. Like previously, the interest has grown in the game, and before maybe there wasn't that much interest and that was fine. But it feels like a lot of the investment that clubs have put into things like shirts, or the belief that they have in the women's game, hasn't matched with the growth in popularity. It's like popularity is going like this, and like the investment that some places are putting in is kind of like this, which is why it was, for me at least, great to see you. Do you kind of feel that like maybe in some areas the investment isn't matching the growth in popularity?
I think that I think that's a sport-wide issue, and I think the perfect example. And of course, anyone out there that knows that I'm a Newcastle United fan knows that I'm probably going to use this as an example. But Sports Direct is for me the perfect example. It's the biggest sports website in the UK. It's the biggest selling sport manufacturer in the UK, one of the biggest in the world. And they call us ladies, like, as in the drop down is ladies. And like, I'm saying it like that because that's how I feel when I hear the word ladies. You know, when you're at school, ladies, don't play on the grass, like whatever it was, like a weird word to use, and by what I mean by that is there is a severe lack of understanding about women's sports people from all of the brands, and that's primarily because they're run by men. So nobody's actually asked me, what do you want to be called on the Sports Direct website? My answer would be woman. I'm a woman. Like that. That's why all of the clubs, Liverpool, Arsenal, Man United, have all changed themselves from Arsenal ladies to Arsenal women back in 2012. We're not talking like 10 years ago. This is a decade thing of like, ladies is a bit outdated. Let's move on from ladies. And so then you hover over the drop down on Sports Direct's website, and the number one thing that ladies are considered to be, doing sports wise is walking boots. Walking boots, sandals, and And then you click on football, and then accidentally the link takes you through to the men's section. So it takes you through to men's clothes, men's football. So I hope I know it's a bit of a curve around to the point that you're trying to make, but essentially, I don't think it's that they're behind. I don't think it's that clubs are behind the curve when it comes to like women's football growing. I think they're not particularly interested, and that's why Foudys works, because my entire like focus is on what do you want? Like, if I get a message saying I want a Champions League badge, I'm not a women's Champions League fan, as in I don't support Chelsea, I don't support Barcelona, I don't support Man City. I just like women's football. Okay, that's what the fans are wanting. That's what I need to source. If a fan feels offended by my wording or my terminology, I genuinely listen to that. And you can bet your bottom dollar that someone's gone to Sports Direct and said, maybe you should change it from ladies. They're just not bothered. They're just
they don't care.
paid by women. So the clubs themselves, I don't doubt that in the next year or so, they'll just bring WSL lettering in onto their website, because it's an easy move for them to make. But it's just super easy. Arsenal already do it, to their credit. Arsenal already provide WSL lettering and WSL arm tags. And just between me and you, it hasn't really affected my Arsenal sales.
Still plenty of Williamsons.
I've actually, lots of Williamsons, as you can see. My next two sales are Arsenal, home and third. But they do it. But the rest of the clubs, I don't doubt that they'll bring in that lettering. But will they focus on, like, what do you want, women's fans? Like, what do you want? Like, as a Manchester City women's fan, what would you like to see? Like, what would you like? What arm tags would you like? You know, what's the best fit for you? Like, what would you like us to challenge or to change about the way that we represent women's football? I don't think they're interested, because they're more fascinated by, you know, Phil Foden shirt sales and Aguero shirt sales and whatever. So, I hope that kind of, I think I've got a bit of a rant.
No, hey, rant away. It's half of what I do on this channel. But like, because you mentioned there, like, listening to what fans want. And I think that one of the biggest problems for me for quite some time, like not me personally, because I'm not a woman, is the cut on the Adidas women's jerseys, even from a couple of years ago, with that huge scoop neck on them. If you speak to 90% of women's football fans who are women, they don't want that giant scoop neck on their jersey. They want a proper football jersey, and putting this giant scoop neck on is just not, like, it's not helping anybody. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. Surely that's something they've got to think about.
This is the fit just for everyone at home that wants, it's like a real, like, it's super, essentially everything you're saying. I actually think I have I don't have a Man United. The Arsenal women's is slightly similar. What it is it's like, to be totally point blank, they need to start representing, the clubs need to represent women. They need to represent women in, like, they need to do it. It's something they need to do because of the movement of society in general, that, like, women want representation. So that's why women's cut jerseys have come in. But they're really not bothered. Like, to burst everyone's bubble, they really don't actually care. So, like, they're not fazed about whether you like them or not. And there is a huge sizing issue that I'm constantly tackling with brands. And to be fair to their credit, people like Nike I've spoken to their sizing director, so the person that deals with their sizing. And I'm just going to put this right out there. I am a medium men's fit jersey in Nike, and I am a women's XXL fit in Nike. So I am classed as a size 20 to 22 in women's fit Nike clothes. And I wear it loose. I think realistically I'm an XL. So I'm classed as a size 18 to 20. And in men's, I'm classed as a size 12, which is what I actually am, which is an average sized woman. And that is really dangerous. It's really dangerous because we already have a serious issue with, like, especially with women with body dysmorphia and things like that. But also, there's not this sort of secret underground layer where they're all going, let's wind women up. They just don't care. Like, sorry to be really, they don't care about women's fit clothing. It's not their main seller. They don't need it out there to, like, make their mega bucks. they just need to represent women because we're entering that phase as a society where women want representation in sport. So they need to create these products, but they're not really too phased because it's an absolute drop in the ocean compared to their, Aguero sales of their men's shirt, So
they don't really care that whether women like what they're getting. It's just that, oh, look, we have a women's jersey because we have to have a women's jersey, because basically if we didn't, it would be some kind of PR disaster for us,
exactly.
Rather than actually taking time to consider what it is that women want. I made this point or a similar point a little while ago. I honestly can't remember what it was directly related to, but essentially my point is that in order to get benefits from women's football, companies do have to invest in women's football. You can't expect that everything is just going to magically start making you money, which is what these companies care about. And we have to be aware of that. Obviously, they're companies, they're in it for the money, but they can't just expect to make money from women's stuff and continue to be able to say, oh, it doesn't make money, it doesn't make money. I'm like, if you invest in it, if you give people what they want and you put more money into it, you will in return reap benefits from it. And like you say, the only excuse for them not doing it at this point is exactly what you said. They kind of don't care.
But there's a certain irony to that as well, James, because at the same time, the people have done research and found that sponsorship deals work way better on female athletes than they do on male athletes on both sides. So women relate more to female athletes saying, you should buy this sports drink. Than they do David Beckham going, you should buy this. Actually, David Beckham would make any.
Yeah, I was going to say Beckham's probably a bad example, isn't he?
Bad example. But essentially, male athletes and female athletes are way more sponsorable, if that's a word.
Yeah.
And yet, sponsorship is predominantly put on male athletes for products and services and everything else. And you think, we've mentioned her a couple of times, someone like Lucy Bronze, who's probably, if we look at English athletes, up there as one of the most representable people that you could put out there in terms of, you'd think that people like Nike would be throwing money at her to be like, put my jersey on, or put this cap on, or put these trainers on, or whatever, because women are more sponsorable than men, and yet they don't. And then the other example is obviously the US women's national team are the prime example. They generate more income for their nation in soccer than the men do, and they reap less of the rewards. So as much as I do agree with you, yes, women need investing into, there is evidence to show that women are producing more in terms of income, and yet they're still not getting as many sponsors and sponsorship deals. And also, even when they are more successful and they are bringing in more money, the men are reaping the rewards of their success.
Yeah, absolutely. I've just remembered what my point was actually, and it leads directly into what you just said. My point was regarding boots, surprise, surprise, was that essentially for signature boots. So I have behind me just here 2 Rose Lavelle signature boots from New Balance.
Show me!
Oh, sorry. Let me... I actually have 3, but the other one isn't here right now. So I have these ones, which are... So these are from the World Cup with the rose gold sole plate and the Lavelle on the back there. So these ones were only made available in very limited numbers and in her size only. So these are a UK size 5.5. It's the only size they were made in because that's her size. And these are the Tequila V1, which have, so it's a custom sole plate at the time. This sole plate wasn't available on the regular V1. This is the sole plate that Lavelle and other pros used. And it's actually the sole plate they put on the V2 later on. But yeah, that's my first pair. These are like beautiful. Absolute gold dust.
Genuinely stunning.
And then I have these ones, which are the boots she's wearing at the moment. So these are actually in my size because they got released in a range of sizes, but there's only, there's only 116 pairs of them. So I have pair number 93 of 116. Whoa. 116, obviously 16 being her national team jersey number. And I have pair number 93. These ones do actually fit me, but they've never been worn. So these have I don't know if you see it on the bottom there. It says "Sweet Chaos." That was the whole kind of angle for the boot as a whole. And then I do have, unfortunately, I don't have them with me. When I get them here, I'll send you a picture of something. It's these boots. It's the exact boots, but they're in an unreleased sample colorway. So they're in a blue colorway, again with the Lavelle branding and everything like that. They were never released to the public. Rose Lavelle never wore them, but I have a pair. So they're currently stored somewhere else and on the way to me. But for example, your reaction to those, my general love for these boots. My point being that I felt that people like Nike needed to put more money into giving signature boots to some of their top female athletes. Lucy Bronze being a prime example. She is a Nike athlete and she wears Nike boots, and she's officially the best women's player in the world, and she does not and never has had a signature boot, which is nuts, basically, in my opinion. Alex Morgan's had one signature boot, which is a boot that I'm dying to try and get hold of. There was only 100 of those made. Megan Rapinoe had a signature boot that never went on sale. It was just a pink boot that was just given to her by Nike to celebrate being the best player last year. And essentially my point being that, there is a demand for these particular things, and there's just no investment being made by Nike, using this example, into these players when there's just so many options there. I will later, I don't know if you've ever seen them. There's a pair of Christine Sinclair Nike Phantom Venoms that, again, were never released. They were just a special colorway just for her, for becoming the all-time leading international goal scorer. And they're some of the best things I've ever seen in my life, but you'll never find them. But anyway, we've all ranting abound.
I think we both kind of just said the same thing, but essentially it's about potential, isn't it? And both of us can see there's total potential for someone like Lucy Bronze to become a household name. She already kind of is becoming a household name, but to become a household name, and companies like Nike just aren't really bothered about like supporting the rise of like these absolute superstars to becoming a name in the same way that Sergio Aguero is a name, like it's totally plausible, and women are more sponsorable, so sponsor her, like sponsorship money at her.
Lika Martin, she's another one. Like,
whack her on your Nike advert on TV. She's way more sponsorable than a men's footballer. Like more people will connect to that, but I mean, it is what it is. Sorry, I'll let you move on.
No, it's fine. I was hoping that Ada Hegerberg recently signed with Nike. She moved from Puma, and I was hoping that move actually would signal that Nike would put a signature boot on her as well. But that hasn't happened so far. But anyway, moving on. So just a couple more things to cover. One is I want to mention, we're kind of moving away from jerseys and things like that, just general women's football at this point. But Birmingham City, the women are obviously struggling incredibly at the moment. The financial situation there is poor, and it does seem like they're not receiving. It's just so easy for clubs to just basically bury the women's team at the first opportunity. I apologize if I'm getting this wrong, but I believe Luton. Is it Luton? I can't remember. Recently just cut the legs out from their women's team like that. And we're just like, we're done. And this is something that I don't really have an answer to other than help. Is what do you think that the governing bodies should be doing to try and kind of like help these clubs that are struggling financially? And what responsibility do the men's clubs have to kind of help support them?
I think there's a potential that I'm going to have my head chopped off by women's football fans here, because I actually really feel for these clubs in these situations. At the end of the day, when your back is against the wall, I think maybe I'll give an analogy of you have a household to look after, and you are making an income, going to work every day and trying to make money, and then on the side you do some charity work, and your partner loses their job or whatever happens. What's the first thing that's going to go? Oh God, I shouldn't have used the analogy that women are a charity, but what I mean is that you need to make income. You need money ASAP, and your time and energy is going into something which isn't making you income. Then that's the thing that has to go. So there's no, I'm not going to get on my high horse and say like, how dare they not fund their women's, they're surviving, they need to survive.
Yeah.
And if they have outgoings going into women's football that aren't making them money, then I'm assuming that's going, and I'm assuming other things are going that are also not making them any money, such as like youth schemes and things like that, because they need immediate income. I think that this is a football-wide issue as opposed to a women's football issue. And actually, this is, I mean, the last few weeks have been crazy. Like, obviously, we're recording this at the beginning of May, but the last few weeks with the Super League stuff, not the Women's Super League, by the way.
No,
guys,
just the actual, the nonsense.
They stole our name. I don't know whether anyone noticed. Stole our name. But with the Super League, and then obviously like the storming of Old Trafford and all of this stuff, you've realised, or it's emphasised the money that is in football. And I think as a society, we often go, footballers are mega rich, they have loads of money. I just want to reiterate, like Abramovich, the Glazers, they wouldn't get out of bed for Wayne Rooney's salary. They wouldn't. Yeah. Like this, we're talking billions of pounds. We're talking like the amount of money, when you actually break it down, when a footballer's on 50, 60,000 pounds a week, yeah, they're a millionaire. They're not even a drop in the ocean for those owners, for the people above that. And so the money that they have can hold together nations. This is the sort of money they have. So frankly, the football pyramid should not have a single club from top to bottom that is struggling. And that is the overriding issue, I think like we can talk about it as, you know, they're dropping their women's team and that's the first thing that's going to go. Sunderland is a perfect example. Their women's team were way better than their men's team, but I would say that. And Newcastle fans, so obviously I'm going to be the first person to disparage Sunderland. But their women's team were dropped like that. As soon as they started to suffer as a men's team, their women's team were gone and have fallen into obscurity. And that's not the club's fault. That's because they suffered as a result of other things, of bad management. So I think it's an overriding football issue. I think that the ownership, the billionaire ownership, should have more responsibility to support and fund these schemes from the top to all the way to the bottom. And the responsibility should be on the wealthiest of our society to help support and grow and nourish things like, you know, kids schemes and women's football and disability football and older people football. Like, this is the responsibility of those giants, of those billionaires. You signed up to own a football club. You sign up to everything that goes with that. You're part of a community beyond, you know, your football club and your stadium. Your responsibility is to that city, to that community, to the other clubs within that community. So if you're Manchester City, Bury is your responsibility. You know, St. Helens is the responsibility of Liverpool. Sunderland is the responsibility of Newcastle, and like that is, it's so much more than going into the terraces and watching a men's team play. It's so much bigger than that. It's a community, and it's about exercise. It's about bringing people together. It's some people's lifelines, for God's sake. It's like, so yes, horrific what's happening with Birmingham, but I genuinely feel for the club because, you know, the Aston Villa and other clubs around them that have that wealth should be helping to support to keep those clubs alive. And I'd like to reiterate at this point, Lyon is I know they've been knocked out of the Champions League, but to me, that's still, it is one of the pinnacles of women's football. They cost £6 million a year to maintain. £6 million a year. That wouldn't pay for Joe Linton's left foot. Like,
no, absolutely not.
And he can't score a goal, for God's sake. This is £6 million a year in world football to maintain the best club in terms of the infrastructure of the club, in terms of what they've done for the last decade in the world. So this isn't an expensive procedure to like have a women's team. It's really not. And it's the right thing to do. Morally, it's the right thing to do. So sorry for that gigantic rant, of which I've gone full circle, but I think this is so much bigger. I love that
rant, and essentially you've hit the nail on the head with basically my thinking is that, especially with the Super League, coming around recently, it's made things even clearer that the football pyramid as a whole is really what needs to be readdressed and rebalanced by, and it has to come from the top with these mega rich clubs and their own responsibilities. And I think, honestly, I have nothing to add to that. You've absolutely nailed my thoughts and feelings on how that should go. And like you say, it is terrible that Birmingham, for example, are going to more than likely, they're going to lose their women's team. But there's a bigger question or a bigger conversation to be had around why that is, and basically how that should be solved. You mentioned there.
Just really quickly sorry to interject on that. Just as a quick thing as well, how sad will it be if the WSL is made up of clubs that are only there because their men's team or a Premier League team that has lots of money?
Has money, yeah. That would really suck.
It really sucks. And you look at the clubs coming into it. Obviously, Leicester City, congratulations to them, but they were always going to invest in women's football because their club invests in their club. So Leicester City do that. We've seen it over the years. They care about their local community and they invest in their club. They're probably one of the best run clubs in Europe, in terms of how much they care. And it's the proof is in the pudding, as it were. For me, a sign that you care about your football club is you look at their women's football club. That's how you know. If you look at any football club and they want to say to me, oh, it's so unfair, my football club, Aston Villa is a perfect example. This is a club that is invested in their women's team whilst also investing in their men's team and has managed to come into the Premier League and also works on trying to build. And then you look at Liverpool and you think, that is a club that obviously doesn't really care that much, and they proved that over the last few weeks about their community, about their fan base, or about their women. So sorry,
absolutely. No, I agree, and I think a good example of what you're talking about there is the Loose women's team, because they're championship side. They finished quite well this season. They're far higher up the leagues than their men's, but they support both teams, I believe, equally. That's just kind of proof that the way that the club is run is basically very, very positive, I think, for just football as a whole.
Viable. And they make money. And
they've proven that.
Yeah, and as soon as they started to equally fund, equally support, equally everything, their women and their men, and it's across the board. And the most important part was the equal support in the sense of nutritionists and backroom staff and stuff. Guess what? Their women started to get as many people come to the stadium as their men's team did. Their women started to get as many shirts bought as their men's team did. So the proof is in the pudding. Equally support them, and the people will come. And just shout out at that moment to Maggie, who's the general manager of Lewes, because she's kind of a bit of a legend, really, in women's football. So any opportunity to shout out Maggie, I'll shout out Maggie.
Big shout out to Maggie. But and I think that when you start to put all these things together, you mentioned the 6 million that it costs to run Lyon. There's a lot of people who are very disillusioned with kind of men's football, the way it's run, the big the players who are only there for the money, the way that the boards operate, the inaccessibility to those players and things like that. Go and watch a women's game. Tickets are available. You can go and support your local team. You can go and jump on social media. You can probably interact with a lot of them. I mentioned Nicolene Sorensen earlier. She had something on her Instagram and I dropped her a message and she responded to me, which is huge. That's massive. She's kind of treating it as interact with this. And I'm oh my God, it's huge for that to happen. I just think the accessibility, the enjoyment of women's football is there for all the people that feel like they're being let down by the men's game. I just think everything is there for what people want, and you can enjoy both games completely individually and get something different out of both and enjoy both to a huge degree. I don't expressly watch women's football. I love watching men's football and I will continue to do so, but I also love women's football and I'll watch both and enjoy them both separately. And I think that's kind of for me at least, that's an important message.
Definitely.
Okay, final question for you, Helen. Thank you. I've kept you for so long. I literally intended this to be about half an hour, but I have adored talking to you. This has been so great. I simply want to know who you think is going to win the Champions League. Who's Barcelona, Chelsea? Who's walking away as the winner?
I promise you when I say this, and I've actually publicized it on purpose because I said last year, like back in August, this is Barcelona's year. And I said it for ages and kind of been slated for it actually a little bit online. People being like, they're just in an easy league. Can I just like clarify? They haven't, they've won every single league game this season. They are on a goal difference of like 115 or something ridiculous like that. They've conceded 2 goals in the league this season. Like, and we're not, this is like Atletico Madrid, players like Tony Duggan. Winning like, those games 4-0. They're tossing teams aside, you know, like they absolutely dominated the league. And they dominated Manchester City, I felt like. In the second leg, they kind of let them, it was a bit more lax, but in general, it was comfortable for them. For me, I believe Barcelona are going to win the league this year, and that's that. Chelsea fans are going to hate me.
Like, honestly, this is how I feel. I want Chelsea to win because I want a WSL club to win the Champions League. Do I think they're going to win? I do not. I think that Barcelona are going to walk out as the champions of Europe.
They obviously did. Sorry to.
Go.
Sorry, they obviously were in the Champions League final last year. I think that really will hold them in good stead. Like a bit Liverpool men's team. You know, they've been there, done that, got the T-shirt, and they know how it feels to lose that final. I think going into it this year, I think that they'll know what it felt like, and they'll run on that energy. So yeah, that's my perception anyway.
Yeah, no, I think both teams are going to be looking at it and thinking, thank the Lord that Lyon aren't in the final this year and we've actually got a chance. But with that, I am going to wrap up. This has been phenomenal. I have really enjoyed talking to you, Helen. Thank you so much. If you do want to support this channel, please head to patreon.com/bootwizard and do get subscribed. Let us know down in the comments if you have enjoyed this. And if you have any other questions for either me or for Helen, feel free to put them down at the bottom. You can also head over to the Foudys website and all of their various social medias to help support them. And if you fancy buying yourself a WSL or an international jersey, maybe a lovely NWSL jersey like this, you can also head over to Foudys to check that out. Helen, I will hand it over to you for the end. Please sign us out and tell us all about where people can find Foudys.
Oh, thank you so much. I've been Helen. I'm the founder of Foudys. Head over to foudys.com. That's FOUDYS.com. And find us on socials. We are Foudys is our socials handle. Thanks.
Thank you so much, everybody. It has been a pleasure, and we will see you all very soon.